Okay, so we have the magic of the texture overlay. And now we go back to our sketch and the notes we made, and we ask ourselves, does it feel significantly like night and stormy and cold and wet and not earth? And except for the very earth-like structures that were also asked for, yeah, it's looking otherworldly, which is good. We also have a believable transition, and this is something to look for and something I'll probably comment on your assignments, between foreground, middle ground, and background, right? Kind of being able to identify that means that it's not all just a flattened space. And that can be really helpful as a background for when we put characters into it or play with it more. There's always going to be more refinements that can be done, but this is looking, pretty strong. I'm going to show you one last technique, which is to just take a little bit of that texture overlay. So I'm going to duplicate it, right, which makes it look too strong, and go ahead and put it at 100% so you can see it. And I'm just going to take a big chunk of it. Even at 100%, it's not fully opaque because I've erased a lot from it. But I'm going to take a big chunk of it like this with my lasso and duplicate just that. Okay, so now I have this cloud. Now I'm going to take my eraser, just like I did with the cloud nebula, and with a very soft hardness at 100% opacity, I'm going to take off the edges, and a little bit bigger of a brush, just to soften all these hard edges. Nothing gives away compositing like hard edges. So we only see hard edges in very select places in our world. Now I'm going to transform it and move it to where I want it, and I want it at the base of this house. The transition with the driftwood, and to cover up that van. And I can warp it. I can use all the different skills we've learned. It's an organic texture. It should be fairly helpful with this. Okay? And then I'm going to use my eraser and kind of sink it in. And this is still at 100% opacity. So I want this piece of driftwood to come through. And then I'm going to take the opacity of my eraser down, and I'm going to be a little bit selective how it wraps around some of these elements and what comes through. And I can use it to kind of glare off of some surfaces. And it helps cover, a lot of the problems in the background there. And the log that I clone stamped. So that's little selective texture mapping or texture overlay. I can also play with the actual opacity, and pin light is often helpful for these because it just brings out little bits that help transition. Yeah, I like pin light. Let's try it. Well, maybe I want duplicates. Maybe I want pin light and I want overlay. And let's duplicate it again and maybe do normal, just to kind of smooth it all in at a very low opacity. So we got lots going on. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take all these texture overlay layers that are on the very top, and I'm going to put them into a folder. This will be helpful later. It's not required. But if you have multiple texture overlays like I do, which I often do, it's helpful to put them in a folder so you can just turn them all off or all on, right? And then the rain, I want to find the rain, and I'm going to put that in its own folder. Because it can be helpful later. Think in terms of storytelling and potential for images. If you can just turn the rain off and on, right, with the textures. And what's great about putting it in a folder is then, like these texture overlays, we tend to overdo it. I can just make the whole folder more or less opaque. So that's without anything, and I kind of like that because we tend to overdo things. But let's put the texture overlay in a little bit, about 80%. Yes, that helps. And then the rain. Maybe I don't want it at 100%. Maybe I want it more like 77%. And then maybe I want the rain to go over the foreground as well. No, that kind of flattens it all out. So let's push it back to where it was. All right. So it looks windy, it looks rainy. That looks even more windy and rainy if it's on top of the house. But then that hurts the transition between the house and the driftwood. So I'm gonna leave it like that. All right, so now, how do we finish it up? How do we save it? Well, first we save like we always say, File, Save, right? And it's named with our name. But then we are going to save it as a JPEG at the highest quality we can that is not over 5 megabytes. Because images that are 5 megabytes or fewer just work better on PhotoBucket. Will cause less problems, fewer problems. So right now my Photoshop image is 1.91 gigabytes. And if I flatten it all to one layer, it would still be 103 megabytes. Way too big for PhotoBucket. So that's why I need to choose a format to save it that can go online. And that is a JPEG or a PNG. And a JPEG has the advantage of being able to be upsampled or downsampled to save memory. So I'm going to save to the desktop now. I'm going to save it with the same name as a JPEG. And when I hit save, it's going to ask me what quality. And I'm going to use this little preview. Right now at 12 quality, it's 16 megabytes. That's too big. So I'm going to slide it down to about 8. That's 3.8. Let's try 9. 4.9. Perfect. So it's fewer than 5 megabytes. That's the JPEG I saved. You want to save the quality so that it's as high as it can be without being over 5 megabytes. That's where the preview and it's telling you how much memory it will take. 4 would be fine. 5 is fine. Honestly, 6 is fine too, but 5 is a good thing to shoot for. Let's say close to 5. All right, so now you can see that on your desktop. And I mark that, it's my online file. I mark it with orange. And then my sketch I need to save to the desktop. So I'm going to say File, Save As, or because I'm in Preview, I have to say Export. And if it was a screen grab, that's fine. It's a PNG, but I'm going to save it to the desktop. And that's also going to get uploaded. You can upload a PNG, you can upload a JPEG. My sketch is not going to be bigger than 5 megabytes. Okay, then I can close it. And we go to PhotoBucket, right? Which if we use Chrome should already be logged in. And we're going to upload 2 things, our sketch and our assignment as it is right now. And we have to put them into the right folder. So we go to Library. And of course, PhotoBucket's going to be slow for me now. But we put it in the Assignment 1 folder. And then you label your sketch with FA17, your name, and then the number 1. And then you're going to title your assignment FA17, your name, number 2. All right.